Hello, folks. Ken Rashad, HBCU Sports Live, a very special edition of HBCU Sports Live. So special that we didn't even really know if we were going to do this today or not. But because of the influx of emails, text messages, private messages, direct messages on all of the social media platforms, various conversations on the HBCU Sports message board about our coverage on a particular institution that we'll get to shortly, we felt that, to be quite honest with you, we had no other choice but to do this at this late hour. Before we go on that, by all means, we ask that you please, if you take a moment to follow us on the social media platforms, on Twitter at HBCU Sports, on Facebook at Real HBCU Sports. By all means, follow us on YouTube as well, so that when we do publish new content, you will be notified as to when the content has been uploaded. Needless to say, it's been an interesting week, to say the least. Ever since the arrival of Deion Sanders was officially announced at Jackson State, things have been it's been a media frenzy, to say the least. But given how things have transpired since that time, I think it's time to kind of put things in proper context, or at the very least, give you some context, so that if you're going to be critical of us, at least know what you're being critical about. Because some of you, quite frankly, you're just going by what you hear other people say, and you have absolutely no clue what any of this is about. So I got my man Kendrick Marshall here to kind of explain some of this, since he is a Jackson State graduate, played baseball at Jackson State. But quite frankly, we're here to talk about the pettiness of Jackson State athletics. And I want to make this very clear. We're not issuing any apologies. We stand by everything that's been reported. We stand by everything that's been published. Some of you don't know the difference between news and opinions. And you know what they say about opinions. Everybody's got one. And that's the clean version. But Kendrick, so let's start with this. For whatever reason, there has been this... some people appear that you are just overly negative about Jackson State. Do you have any idea why that is?
I mean, it all goes back to just simple fans protecting their own schools, protecting their own people, standing by their guy or their team. It isn't unusual in this space or any other space, college athletics. I mean, I covered a Big 12 program for 2 years, and their fan base behaved the same way whenever the coach or the team that they love got criticized or got called out for something that the coach did or something the player did. They're very protective. So this type of behavior and response isn't all that unusual or unexpected. What is kind of unusual is the allegations of being not loyal to the university, being a turncoat, having some vendetta against the school. And from where I stand, that hasn't been the case as long as I've written for this website, been in this space for the last 9 years. And on the message board, I posted almost every story I've ever written about Jackson State in those last 11 years. And let the readers be the judge of, am I going too far? Am I being too negative? Am I being too critical? And from where I stand, I feel like I and we as an organization have been pretty fair to not only JSU, but every single university that we've covered since we started doing this more than 20 years ago. So I would just say I don't have any vendetta against JSU. I don't harbor any resentment from the university. All of the things I've written have come from a place of trying to educate and try to inform the public about what's going on at JSU and how it all relates to HBCU sports.
All right, that's fair enough, I think, and if people want to accept that or not, because I guess there's a part of me, the pieces are out there, And if anyone, whatever, whatever this so-called Kendrick is a journalist. And I guess there's a part of me that thinks that if you think he, for whatever reason, needs to be loyal to his institution, I mean, is he supposed to lie about the truth? Because Lord knows I've gotten it from all ends. I've been doing this over 20 years. And there isn't one institution at some point or another I don't think I've pissed off. And I know I've pissed off mine quite a bit. But we're not a PR machine. We're not here to just only post what's positive about what's going on with our HBCUs. And I think at some point you kind of have to appreciate the fact that at one point, there wasn't many outlets out there covering HBCUs. That's part of the reason why this platform was created. No one gave a damn about your stories. And when they did want to report the stories, and you all know this, they were all negative. So, just kind of put this all in proper context because I'm going somewhere with this. So let's put this in proper context. Back before Deion Sanders was announced as the head coach at Jackson State, it was wildly speculated, but finally we got to the point to where we had enough information to accurately report that Deion Sanders was going to be the next head coach at Jackson State. We broke that story, contrary to what many people said, but that's another issue. We broke that story. We're not necessarily trying to be the first to do it, but it just happens to be we were the first to break the story. So, on that same day we broke that story, we got a call from Jackson State saying, can you please remove the story? It is not accurate. Now, mind you, we never received a call from Jackson State. Never. And on this day, I got a call asking, you need to take it down because it's not correct. And I said, why is that? And they explained, the excuse was, well, he hasn't signed a contract. I said, well, we didn't report that he was signing a contract. The story was that you plan on naming him as your new head coach. Long story short, that's what happened. And it took Sports Illustrated to verify the report. And Ross Dillinger, who was nice enough to basically say that our reporting was accurate. And it's unfortunate that it took a mainstream outlet for some of you to just finally accept the fact that it was what it was. So why Jackson State felt the need to call me to say this, well, I don't know. So the news becomes official. And once Deion Sanders was announced, Kendrick Marshall, you took the proper steps to request an interview from Athletic Director Ashley Robinson. Is that correct?
That's right.
And once you reached out for them or to them to request that interview, what was the response?
I got a response saying Ashley Robinson wasn't available for interviews the particular week that I requested to speak to him, to check back next week. So a week later, I emailed him again, asking, is Ashley Robinson available for an interview? I was talking about how this whole process came together with Deion Sanders, wrote this pitch. What did he say, OJ is on? And I was told he wasn't going to interview again. And then, I guess a day or so later, I find out that he's on a radio show, Ashley Robinson, talking about how the hire of Deion Sanders transpired. And so that was a little bit surprising because I've requested interviews before from that state and they've been pretty cool about it. But this particular time, they simply just did not respond to the request. And they allowed Ashley Robinson to do all these other interviews, seemingly ignoring us. That's not to say that was the reason why I wrote what I wrote later on. I mean, I take it with a grain of salt. I'm like, well, Ashley Robinson was pretty busy at that time. He was probably getting calls from all over the place, explaining himself because it was a pretty big deal hiring Deion Sanders as the head coach. And so I figured he was pretty busy. So I just like left it alone. I figured I'd get a chance to talk to him again later on when everything kind of cools down. And so in the process of waiting around, all this other stuff with Deion Sanders happened where I wrote about him not wearing the mask in the one outing, which had nothing to do with any animosity toward him or anything like that. It was more of a concern about him as a coach and just the scenario in which we are all living in, where the coronavirus is very prevalent and people can be exposed in a number of ways. And I felt like he was jeopardizing himself, he was jeopardizing people by putting himself in a position where he wasn't wearing a mask at one particular time. And we come to find out later in later previous Instagram and social media posts, he kind of does that a lot. He's not in meetings wearing a mask. His staff isn't wearing a mask, or they're wearing them when they're wearing them incorrectly. And so I kind of got justified on that one, even though people thought it was kind of petty to bring it up. But it was all about concern for him and the program because, as you know, a lot of coaches have contracted coronavirus, and a lot of programs in football, especially at the Division One level, have been decimated by coronavirus. I mean, 17 bowl games already have been postponed because of coronavirus issues, and it's hitting college basketball pretty hard too. The Duke women's basketball team announced they're gonna postpone their season. FAMU women's team postponed their season. And as far as Black college sports is concerned, 53 games so far have been either postponed or canceled because of COVID issues. And so I just wrote that from a standpoint, we got to take this a little bit more seriously about doing everything we can to protect ourselves around the public, especially with coaches, because they have like so much influence and so much power in their program that if a coach like Deion Sanders is seen in public not wearing a mask or being lax even for a moment, then that could possibly justify other people doing the same thing. And it wasn't an attack on Deion Sanders. He was just recognizing that, hey, Deion Sanders is human too, and we all, make mistakes. We all kind of forget where we are in certain situations, and we need to be a little bit more vigilant about the situation. But as far as what I wrote about, and we're going to bring this up later on in the broadcast about his tweet regarding JSU going to play into a bowl game, that was something that was kind of disturbed me a little bit from the standpoint of that he was kind of not assessing the situation very well. I mean, like he was calling for bowl games,
So
sponsors.
you know what? So hold on, Kendrick. Let's stop because I don't. Let's not get too ahead. We'll get to that because I'm looking at some of the comments here, and Charles Jameson made a point. Jackson State doesn't owe us any interviews. If we ask for an interview, you're right. They don't have to grant an interview, and that's just fine. And we moved on.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like I mean,
right.
like,
But hold on. Let me finish. Let me make this point. And from that time, we never reached out to Jackson State about anything. We just continued to do what we do. We talked about we talked about the recruits that Deion Sanders brought in. We talked about the recruits that other schools brought in. We did special features on some of those other recruits from other schools. So the entire focus wasn't just about Deion Sanders. I want to make that perfectly clear. We didn't hear from Deion Sanders. We didn't hear from Jackson State. Didn't reach out to Jackson State. And it wasn't until Kendrick wrote that article about the tweet that Deion Sanders created. All college bowl sponsors, I see there is a myriad of bowl cancellations this year due to various reasons, mainly COVID. We go JSU Tigers. Football would love the opportunity to participate in your bowl games in 2021, 2022. Help us change the narrative and invite us. We're ready. Now, go ahead, Kendrick. You wanted to explain the reason why you wrote on that particular tweet.
Just going back to my earlier statements, I didn't write what I wrote because I was salty I didn't give me an interview. I requested an interview with JSU in September, and I didn't write about Deion Sanders again until November. So if I had anything against Deion Sanders or JSU at the time, I would have wrote it in September or October. Why would I wait 2 months to write something in response to not getting an interview in September? That didn't make any sense. But yeah, about the tweet, it was kind of outputting to me because Deion Sanders recognized that these bowl games were being canceled because of COVID reasons, and and that these games needed teams to play in. And so I kind of felt like, why are you missing the point of the games being called off because of COVID? I mean, the teams can't play because of COVID. It's a concern for those teams. And so just to say, well, we want to step into their spot is kind of missing the point of like, we should all be careful. We should take this virus seriously. And if a Division I team can't play because of COVID, what makes you think you can play in spite of that? And also the fact that an FCS team can't qualify for an FBS bowl. And the third point is that the SWAC and the MEAC has a contract with a Celebration Bowl. That's their bowl game. That's the bowl game they're supposed to play in. And so you going out of your way to try to court these other bowl games not associated with your league is kind of disrespectful to the Celebration Bowl and compromises relationship between the SWAC and an entity. And I feel like Deion Sanders shouldn't have done that. And I think the criticism was fair in a lot of ways.
Yeah, it was fair. But so then the craziness began. And so my man Fred Batiste decided he'd add some more clarity to that particular story. And he wrote this piece about Deion Sanders shooting his best shot. But instead of just addressing the tweet, he actually took it a step further by providing examples. And he basically went over a number of things. Why, for one, FCS schools couldn't necessarily participate in the FBS bowl games. And then the other element was with the rhetoric being what it was, and that Deion Sanders going to Jackson State was going to some way, somehow benefit all HBCUs. And basically what he was trying to say is there may be some residual benefits for the HBCUs, but the hire for Jackson State was with Deion Sanders was primarily going to be the beneficiary. The beneficiary was going to primarily be Jackson State. So now this is where things really got crazy for me. Now keep in mind, Jackson State didn't want any part of us when Deion Sanders was first hired. Didn't want to grant any interviews, and that's fine. And based upon the rhetoric of everyone out there, we're just a media outlet trying to get attention. Be damned what was said. We're just a media outlet just trying to get attention. And no one really cares about this small time media outlet. Nevertheless, when Fred's piece was published, why did Jackson State call me again? That's right. Jackson State called me asking, why were we being so negative? Well, if you're not paying any attention, and if you don't care about if you don't think of us enough to provide even an interview, why are you calling us, asking us about why are we being so negative? And for those of you who are saying that we're hurt, no, we're not hurt. I think it's your institution that felt hurt. And I'll take it a step further. I think it was your man Deion Sanders who was probably a little hurt. Because then he felt the need to settle down. He felt the need to double down, and he created another tweet. What if all our top teams in HBCU could play in a bowl game and our schools are compensated, get national television exposure, which strengthens our athletes' chances of going pro? What if? Let's change the narrative and stop settling. And I'm going to just say this right now. If that isn't the biggest piece of philosophical bullshit I've ever heard in my life, if that isn't the rhetoric of someone who has absolutely no clue about the history of the SWAC, the history of HBCU football, and the inner workings surrounding it. This is on-the-job training for you. This is on-the-job training. And so, and I'm gonna look at this for a moment. What if our top teams in HBCU could play in a bowl game and our schools are compensated? Well, that already exists. It's called a Celebration Bowl. That was echoed repeatedly when Deion Sanders put that tweet out the first time. It was echoed repeatedly. And I guess, Coach Prime being what he is, I guess, he felt the need to double down. But we have the Celebration Bowl. Our HBCUs are playing in bowl games, and our schools are being compensated. As a matter of fact, and this was also posted on Twitter, and I made this clear, the Celebration Bowl actually pays more than some of those FBS bowl games that are currently out there now. He talks about getting national exposure. The Celebration Bowl comes on ABC. It doesn't come on ESPNU. It doesn't come on ESPN2. It doesn't come on ESPN. It comes on ABC. You can't get any more exposure than that. If you have an antenna, you can get ABC, you can get it. You don't need a cable provider. Let's change the narrative and stop settling. And that's the part and I'm gonna tell you now, that's the part that didn't just get me, but I actually got people who are currently working in HBCU athletic administrations right now thought that was bull. Because if you know anything about the history of HBCUs, if you know anything about the history of this conference, the SWAC conference, if you know anything about the history of HBCUs in general, the body of work is there. We don't settle. In 99, I think 99, 2000, when the SWAC championship game was first created, it was Commissioner Rudy Washington who came up with the idea. You know what? We're not winning any games in the playoffs. And college athletics being the business that it is, we're not making any money in it. As a matter of fact, to this day, FCS teams don't make money in the playoffs. It loses money. That's a fact. It's published every year, every time someone makes a run in the FCS playoffs. So Rudy Washington came up with the idea. He said, you know what? We're going to split the conference from a 10-team conference, and we're going to split it into divisions, the East and West Division, and we're going to have our own championship game, and we're going to create our own revenue maker, and we're going to settle a conference championship, a conference champion through a championship game. Now you tell me. That's the first example of HBCU administrators changing the narrative. That's the first example of HBCUs not settling for the status quo, like all the other FCS programs are currently doing now. So we move forward with the championship game, and it gains traction. And before you know it, CIAA, they get a championship game. Then the SIAC, they get a championship game. So now the narrative is being changed. And folks aren't settling. HBCUs are not settling. And someone correct me if I'm wrong. Are there any Division II football conferences out there with championship games right now? I don't know. I honestly don't know. And I don't know if there are any FCS conferences with championship games right now for their football championship. But, make no mistake about it, the SWAC was the first. And during this time, there were those racial overtones that were made. And some of you guys who know the history of this, Fans from other FCS institutions were making racial overtones. Well, that's just the SWAC trying to segregate itself from everyone else. Not realizing that to this very day, when you look at the Power 5 institutions, what the hell do you think they're doing? They're trying to segregate themselves from everybody else. Cincinnati is undefeated to this day, and they can't get a spot in the football playoff. So the SWAC simply was doing what it had to do. And everybody else basically followed that lead. And now we got the MEAC recently announcing that they too are going to come up with a championship game. So how is that settling? How are we not changing the narrative? Fast forward to 2 years ago. SWAC championship game started in Birmingham, went to Houston, went back to Birmingham, but there was a scheduling conflict. UAB, I think, whatever conference they're in, Conference USA, was scheduled to host the championship game, I believe, on the same day as the SWAC championship game. Dr. Charles McClellan had a decision to make. I think at one point they were possibly considering trying to get a, maybe playing it that day or playing it sometime after. When Charles McClellan said, you know what, we'll just play it on campus. Alcorn and Southern. And guess what? It was unanimous. They decided to go forward. And it's been that way. So that's another example of individuals not settling for what was, and they're changing the narrative. So what the hell is Deion talking about? What is it that you think you can do that basically the ideas that you already put in place, they've already been done. That's an old idea. Cats are already changing the narrative. All you need to do is show that you can coach. That's what your role is right now. Let the administrators administer. You coach. Get to learn the lay of the land first before you decide on making recommendations about what the HBCU should do and what the SWAC should do. Because if we're going to be real here for a moment, and I'm sorry, Kendrick, I know somebody said I need to let you talk, but let me, if we're going to be real here for a moment for you Jackson State folks, keep in mind one thing. Jackson State wasn't Deion's first choice. Jackson State wasn't even Deion's second choice. He wanted to go to Florida State. Couldn't get to Florida State. He wanted to go to Arkansas. I'm not mad, just passionate, CJ. I'm not mad. But, at some point, you can't shit on the people who have been doing the work long before you even thought about a damn HBCU. That's the point. So we just need to put some things in proper perspective because, leave it up to Deion. He'll tell you he just wants to be a leader of men and he just wants to teach them and to go out. And you know what? But what coach in the SWAC doesn't want to do that? You aren't telling us anything that we haven't already heard. You're not doing anything that we don't expect from our current coaches right now. You just got a platform to just spew. But at some point, you're going to have to prove what your worth is on the sideline. Plain and simple. Kendrick, you see the comments.
I see him.
Feel free to chime in.
To defend Deion Sanders, I'm going to defend Deion Sanders. He's a tremendous self-promoter. He's a brand unto himself. And I think with his series of tweets and how he's run the program, he's trying to sell Jackson State to the public. I mean, you go on his Instagram, you go on his Facebook, you go on his Twitter. I mean, the guy, if you're an 18-year-old kid and you're interested in playing football somewhere and you see these WWE style promos that the guy cuts, it would make me seriously consider wanting to play for JSU. And I think him going out and try to court these bowl games, using his name behind it, trying to get credibility, saying, I'm Deion Sanders and I'm endorsing this right now. And if you want to elevate your bowl game while at the same time elevating one of the great HBCUs in the history of Black college sports. You can do that with my backing. And so I don't blame him for doing it because that's all he knows. He's a seller. He's going to sell you hope. He's going to sell you this. He's going to sell you that. That's his MO. And it has made him a tremendous amount of money. It has given him a tremendous amount of wealth. It's given him a tremendous platform that he has now. And so all of this at the end of the day is going to do nothing but just drive more attention to JSU and drive more attention to Deion Sanders and drive more attention to the program, which was everyone associated with the program wants, good or bad, controversial or not. It's making headlines and it's putting JSU's name out in the public sphere where otherwise would not be if Deion Sanders was not the head coach. I mean, we could sit here and say, well, what he said on Twitter wasn't in the best interest, which he wasn't. But at the same time, he's marketing the program, he's marketing himself. At the end of the day, if you want to get recruits, if you want to get interest from outside of the HBCU bubble, that's something you probably will have to do. And so as much as we may discount what he said on Twitter or not like it at all, him not understand the process, he's only going to do what he knows how to do. And so from that standpoint, I understand where he's coming from. But like, as far as going about it the right way and proving your worth before you make these proclamations, I think that's where Deion Sanders came a little bit short here.
Okay, and again, there's not. Look, we all know the reason why he was brought to Jackson State, and Jackson State right now is winning. Make no mistake about it, they are winning. They're talked about regularly. We're talking about them. Look, this is what Ashley Robinson wanted. This may not necessarily be the right narrative that you were looking for, but you got the attention, and this all comes with it. No one's hating on the, you guys kill me with the silliness about hating us and being bitter. Nobody's bitter. Nobody's hating. But again, I want to emphasize this again. We're not a PR machine for HBCUs. That's not what we do here. And you need to, first of all, understand that. You have no problem when we post the so-called positive things. But you have the audacity to call us and ask why we're being negative? When previously you didn't even acknowledge us or didn't want to have anything to do with us, but now all of a sudden you want to know why we're being so negative? You can't have it both ways. But do know, Ashley Robinson, you got an open invite. Deion Sanders, you got an open invite. If you want to come on and we can talk. You probably won't. I get it. But it's here. Nobody's hating on you. When the season goes, as we always do, and those of you who really know, when the football season starts and you guys play a non-conference opponent who's not affiliated with the SWAC or definitely not with an HBC, I'll be cheering for you. But the business still is the business. It's just that simple. And needless to say, when you got the call and then you want to know why and then you don't get the answer that you're looking for and then all of a sudden you block us. Oh, by the way, there's that, you're blocked. They just flat out blocked us. And I thought it was just comical. I think it's absolutely hysterious to this day. That a Division I institution could be so damn petty over the coverage that it gets from a small-time blog, as some of you want to call it, that you would want to block us on Twitter like some way, somehow that's going to make a difference. Especially when we were doing this before Twitter even existed. Let's take some questions. Let's see. Look, I'm reading some of this garbage, and I'm gonna tell you guys, for those of you, and you know who you are, it's funny. You're the ones that's following me, commenting, but yet you just can't seem to go away. I got a stalker, I believe it or not, Kendrick. I got a stalker, follows me everywhere I go. Don't blame me for what you don't know. All we can do is just provide you with the facts. And I've said it before. The best kind of fan is an educated fan. And if you don't know, you don't know. And if someone tries to tell you what's already there and you still don't want to accept it, then that's you. But believe me, we're going to continue to do what we do. If I can get past all of the profanities. Anything you want to say, Kendrick?
How do I follow up you? I mean, you could have went all night if I knew.
Yeah, I could have. But someone reminded me that I needed to give you a chance to speak.
Yeah, like Ken pretty much said, like we don't have any animosity toward Deion Sanders or JSU. I mean, we're just pointing out some things that have been said in the public sphere that has kind of not been smart by Deion Sanders or smart by JSU in blocking our Twitter accounts. But again, like we don't have anything against the university. We're still gonna go out there and do our jobs to the best of our abilities, despite the circumstances. And we're gonna continue to try to be as fair as possible, not just to JSU or Deion Sanders, but to you people who read our work every day. I mean, that's what we're doing this for. I mean, like if we go out here and try to tug on people and try to start mess and try to do this, it only takes away from our work and it really hurts you guys at the end because you would have an expectation of coverage from us for all these years. So again, like I don't have anything against Deion or JSU, and Ken doesn't either, despite what he may say tonight. He's just very passionate about HBCU sports and how they look in the public sphere and how people feel about them. And he's a protector of the brand for the most part. I'm not saying this joke. I'm really serious. Like Ken Rashad really cares a lot about Black college sports and the people who work inside and outside of Black college sports. He cares about the fans. He cares about the SIDs. He cares about the inner workings of these schools. And there are a few places and a few entities around the country that are really actually say this guy cares about Black colleges on the level that he cares about. And so as long as Ken Rashad is around, we're gonna continue to do what we do.
RJ McGee has a question. What's the viability of FCS HBCUs forging their own media deals? RJ, I guess, to be honest with you, I don't know if you can necessarily just limit it to FCS HBCUs. To be honest with you, I just think it's everybody doing what they have to do for their, if you're an athletic director, you're going to make the best deal for the institution that employs you. If you're a conference commissioner, you're going to make the best deals for the benefit of the entire membership. It's all about revenue, ultimately. College athletics is a business. It's all about business. And look, and I want to make this perfect. No one is saying that Deion Sanders doesn't have a right to an opinion. That's not the point here. But for someone who just got here, who arguably didn't necessarily want to be here initially, to make comments like that without at least displaying that he has some idea as to what the history of this conference and the body of work that is produced, as well as the history of HBCUs in general, I think that's just a tad bit disrespectful. And I think you just need to, when you start talking about using words like "let's stop settling," that's an insult. Whether you unintended or not, that's an insult. And I just provided you with the examples to indicate that is not true. We're not settling. And another point, the Celebration Bowl, if you guys must know, was also the brainchild of Dr. Dennis Thomas of the MEAC. So we're not settling. And currently the Celebration Bowl is the only bowl game for FCS. The only one. And there have been FCS administrators, coaches, athletic directors who at some point have gone on record and said, you know what, it would be nice if there were more FCS bowl games for their institutions to attend. It's public record. So we are forging a way. We are making things happen. We are not settling for just whatever. And that narrative needs to be addressed and it needs to be put away. So RJ, thank you for the question. Let's see. Trey Haynes. Deion Sanders is promoting Deion Sanders, not HBCUs. Well, yeah. He'll mention the HBCUs, for the time that he's at Jackson State. But look, and Deion Sanders is being himself, just like you said. We expected this. We're not seeing anything new. But if you're going to go on record to talk as if some way, somehow you think you know more than the people who have been doing this for years, the people who don't get nearly enough credit, because believe me, there are people within HBCU circles, me included, we'll criticize them one way or another. But at the very least, I know they give a damn. It comes with the territory. I'm criticized all the time. I'm being criticized right now as we speak. It comes with the territory. Let me see here. Marco LaFleur, good balanced journalism. Hey, I appreciate it, Marco. I'm glad someone appreciates it. Let me see. Flood, we gonna talk, brother. Fred, I see you. Let me see. Give me your phone now. Okay. I don't know who you're talking to, Jeannie, but thank you for coming in. I'll try to see if there are any more questions maybe before we call it a night.
Yeah, there was one earlier about asking whether Deion was marketing JSU or was he marketing HBCUs as a whole.
Well, what's that again?
One question was whether Deion marketing HBCUs or was he marketing himself?
Both, I guess. I mean, but again, I just, there was I'm not going to call his name, but there is a Jackson State individual who I think put it pretty nicely. At some point, you're going to have to stop promoting the SWAC and promoting HBCUs and just stick to promoting the school that currently employs you. I like I said, I'm sure he's well intended, but just like Deion Sanders feels that we can benefit from his knowledge, I think you could benefit from ours too. It's a two-way street. Let me see. Oh man, you guys are hilarious. Reggie, I want the JSU folks to have the same energy with the Clarion Ledger. You know what, Flood? Look, man, I'm not going to go there, but I know exactly what you mean. If they would acquiesce to Sports Illustrated, I mean, I get it. Let me see. Who is this? Tony Lamont Coleman. I saw the article as pointing out some devil in the detail kind of things. Of course, Prime/JSU people probably won't like it. Again, man, Troy, thanks. Again, we're not necessarily trying to make, we're not trying to piss anybody off. If you want to call us out on being wrong, call us out on being wrong when we report the news. But if, you may not necessarily like a person's opinion, but at the very least know that it is an opinion. Some of you just don't know the difference between news and an opinion. That's not a reflection of us. That's a reflection of you. Don't blame us for your ignorance. That's what you need to understand. It's done every day. Frederick Keys. They're not going to go after the Clarion Ledger. Man, y'all need to stop. Okay. All right. Look, I'm going to leave it there. We've been doing this, almost, no, we've got a few more minutes. We'll dedicate an hour. Let me see here. I'm trying to. Oh, wow. Okay. Now they're talking about my man Avis. Let me see. Chris Lucas. Ivy League actually wishes they were in the MEAC and SWAC and SWAC choose. I don't know about that, Chris. I don't know if I put it like this, but the Ivy League is another example, because there's this narrative about the Ivy League that the Ivy League doesn't. I've literally heard people say the Ivy League doesn't take sports seriously, and that is just absolutely not true. The Ivy League, they're serious about athletics. Obviously it's not the highest priority, but again, college athletics being the business that it is, keyword business, they are about the business. Because if you notice, the Ivy League doesn't participate in the FCS playoffs. Again, it loses money. But the Ivy League will make sure they send a representative to the NCAA basketball tournament. I wonder why. The NCAA tournament is a moneymaker. That is the NCAA's largest revenue producer. Go figure. The FCS, the Ivy League won't go to the FCS playoffs, but they'll send a representative to the basketball tournament.
Yeah, and those Ivy League schools in football, they're pretty good too. So
they're
not just scared to go to the playoffs. They just want to be there.
Right. Let me see. Thomas Cornelius, we should be appreciating any HBCU media by black schools and the fans, whether you like these guys or not. Brother, I appreciate it, Thomas. And to this point, and I'm glad because you just reminded me of something that I wanted to say. We become so enamored about what we see people doing at the FBS and at the Power 5 level. I think we forget and we don't necessarily appreciate fully what we have for us at the FCS level. Everything that the SWAC, the MEAC, and just HBCUs in general with their football playoffs is unprecedented. We show in our actions that we actually, we show that we care about our student athletes by what we do. Charles McClellan made that decision. You know what? We're just going to go ahead and pass football on for the fall. We're going to move it to the spring. And it got national attention as being the so-called blueprint for how all other athletic programs should consider, given where we were at that time with COVID. And given where we are right now, it's cutting the edge, because now there's that discussion as to whether or not we're going to still be able to play football in the spring. But now that we've got a vaccine, and people are taking, getting vaccination, is it possible that we can still salvage a spring football season? Now granted, there are some unique set of problems. We talked about this before with training and things of that nature, but I just think that, man, we need to take a step back and appreciate what we have. And another thing too, and Kendrick, again, I'm sorry for taking this up, man. When you look at, and I'm talking about football here, when you look at our body of work, historically speaking, about with the SWAC and MEAC, what they've done against FCS opponents, we haven't fared very well, historically speaking. We just don't do very well when it comes against games against FCS PWIs. We don't. So how can we possibly talk about competing at the FBS and playing in FBS ball games? Well, damn, we lose more often than not against opponents on our same level. There's college athletics, the business, but there's still a compatibility issue that, we want to be competitive doing this. You can talk about the issues related to resources and things of that nature. We get that. That all goes without mentioning. That's there. It's true. And it all plays a role as to why we're kind of deficient in that area. But the bottom line is that there is so much room for us to improve at the level that we're at. We can continue to move forward. Does it mean that we can't consider going FBS in the future? No, we can. But that's years away from now if that ever happens. And quite frankly, go ahead.
That's a goal to go to the FBS that is going to be a decade or more on the back burner for a lot of schools. I mean, just to get the revenue and the facilities to join the FBS will take a lot of years. And now you have the coronavirus and its impact on the economy and how it's affected athletic programs all across the country, where they're cutting programs, where they're losing millions of dollars because their kids are not going to in-person classes. They're doing everything online. And so to have the resources to be able to make that type of move in this environment is going to be really difficult unless you have a benefactor like Jeff Bezos' wife donating millions of dollars to your program or to your university yearly. That's kind of the only way it's going to happen. And I understand where Dion's coming from. Like this guy he's the guy who dreams big, who wants to accomplish a big thing, but the reality sets in when you realize how much resources it's going to take to get to the level you want to get at. And even if you get to a bowl game at the FBS level, it's not going to be a very good bowl. It's going to be the Cheez-It Bowl. It's going to be the Bahamas Bowl. It's going to be the Camellia Bowl. It's going to be one of those bowl games that's on a Thursday afternoon on ESPN where nobody's really watching. And not millions of people are going to be in the stands. Not millions of people are going to be watching at home. And so, yeah, you reach the FBS Bowl, but what are you getting out of it? Playing in Birmingham, Alabama, or playing in the Superdome with 20,000 people, something like that. The move has to be strategic, and it has to be with a lot of planning. It has to be with a lot of thinking about how this is going to impact university 5, 10, 15, 20 years down the road if you do something like that.
Right. Ronaldo Christmas. He set up the HBCU combine before he got to JSU. Okay. And we reported on that too. That's a great thing. I don't understand what the point is. Let me see. Everett, I will make sure he checks with you on all things HBCU. Oh, wonderful HBCU guys. Stop crying like a little. You know what? Actually, you want to be smart, but I'm gonna be honest with you, Dion. You probably could benefit from me kind of spitting some knowledge your way about the history of HBCUs. And I'm not saying that to be funny. I'm just dead serious. He could probably learn a few things from me about the history of HBCUs. In football history, he's no one's disputing his football acumen. He knows the game of football. But you're trying to be, you say that in jest. But yeah, he probably could have a conversation with me, and I probably could share a couple of things about some HBCU history that he probably isn't aware of. He's still new to this. It shows in his tweets. Let me see here. Mo Carter, how you doing, brother? Facts. Recently, the Ivy League presidents penned a letter asking members of the MEAC or SWAC to participate in the postseason bowl game. Yeah, you know what? I remember that. I don't know if actually. So Mo, you might need to kind of. I remember we did. I know a coach from Princeton, I believe. Kendrick, didn't we do that? It was a coach, I believe, from Princeton who made the recommendation.
It was a coach from Princeton who recommended that a school from the Ivy League play a SWAC school in a bowl game.
Right, but Mo, are you
from the Celebration Bowl?
Right, but Mo, are you saying that the president's actually penned a letter since that time? Hit me up and let me know, because I'd like to know that.
That just goes to show you like how even the Ivy League would bypass the FCS playoffs to play a little old black college school in a bowl game.
Right. Let me see. Roger Milton, maybe I'm not caught up, but why is this a fight for your media outlet? This seems more personal. Roger, this ain't personal. I swear to you, this is not personal. This isn't. I'm passionate, but don't confuse that for being personal. I hold no ill will towards Deion Sanders. I don't even know him. I hold no ill will to anybody. But at some point, you just got to understand, look, we have a job to do. And I understand, some people have a different approach to how they do this. I've always been critical. This is just who I am. And people who really know me who over the years, this isn't anything new. Jackson State just happens to be the flavor of the month. I'm sure at some point it'll be somebody else. It wasn't long ago, it was FAMU. I pissed them off. Alcorn was pissed off because of something I said about the weak schedule that they had. And I thought, given where they were, how they had advanced, I thought that the schedule that they published was, to be quite honest with you, beneath them, because I believe they scheduled something like 2 non-FC, like 2 Division II programs. And I went to task. I took them. I commented on it. It's not something that I do often, but that was more out of appreciation for Alcorn's football program as opposed to me just being personal. It's never personal. It's not. I understand you may not like it. I understand that if I say something, some of you might get a rise, but that is not my intent. But then at the same time, I don't give a damn about you being upset either. That needs to be understood. But it's not personal. It's personal for some of you, and I can understand. You love your alma mater. I can't sit up here and tell you that I appreciate everything that I read about Grambling when I see it in the paper. I might get a little upset, but I get it. I understand. So I just think we need to put some things in proper perspective here. You can't do what I've been doing this long and have a dislike for HBCUs or for a particular individual. If you don't take anything from that, just know that. Because there are individuals who I have a hell of a lot of respect for, who I consider friends, by the way, and I've pissed them off many times in the past. We talk all the time. So you just need to understand that. Let's wrap this up. School today. You need to criticize who did them bricks for you. I was wondering if somebody was going to say that. Hey, man, you know. That was good. I like that. Kendrick, look, we're about to shut this down, man. Any last? I mean, if you're done, that's fine. But you know, feel free to leave us with any parting words.
Yeah, we were not upset because we didn't get any for JSU when Deion Sanders was hired. We didn't think anything of it. It's just a part of the business. Sometimes all you can do is ask, and you don't get a response you want. Okay, oh well, move on. We don't have any animosity for the university because of that. But at the same time, we're gonna, as Ken says, we're gonna tell like it is. We're gonna provide you guys with the history, with the analysis, with the opinion, with the news that we provide every single day. And we're gonna keep doing it for as long as we can. But I mean, as far as this situation goes, it's kind of over. I mean, like it at this point kind of does a disservice to us and JSU to keep this prolonged longer than it has. It doesn't do anybody any good at the end of the day. We shouldn't be part of any story, and neither should they.
Exactly right.
At the end of the day, our job is to report to you what happens with Black College sports, and their job is to promote the university. So that's kind of where we stand right now, as far as I'm concerned.
And on that note, Kendrick, thank you, man, for taking a moment to do this on last minute notice. Like you said, it wasn't our intent to do this. This was just kind of a last minute thing. And as far as I'm concerned, we're done with it. But it had to be addressed because at some point you begin to hear the same thing over and over again, and you begin to repeat it without necessarily having all the details. And whether you want to believe what we told you or not, again, I don't really care. But if you're going to be critical, at least know what you're being critical about. So this is HBCU Sports Live. Make sure you follow us on all the social media platforms. Again, feel free to subscribe on YouTube as well as follow us on Facebook. And we'll see you next time. See you later, Kendrick.
See you.